everyone, welcome back to Maximum Attack Rallying and to this week's vlog. Last minute change of topic for this one. There's some rumours going on, isn't there, about who's going to be driving what next season still in WRC2 terms. One quick note on that, which I think is quite interesting, is that apparently Pierre-Louis Loubet has tested the GR Yaris Rally 2. I thought, and I think I said it as much last week, didn't I, that he was a shoo-in for a Rally 1 seat at M Sport. If he's testing that Yaris, that suggests to me that he possibly isn't a shoo-in. So I think there's definitely some interesting stuff to come there. Lots of other people have tested the car. Payari, Lefebvre has tested it. My mind's gone blank. Lots of people have driven it anyway. I think there's news to come, but until things firm up a little bit, the less said about that, the better. But there's definitely things in the works there, isn't there? But the main thing I actually wanted to talk about in this video is something much closer to home. If you're not based in the UK, then I apologise, because this might not mean too much to you, or it might. If you are in a different country and any of this topic resonates, I'd definitely be interested to hear about that, because I think it would be interesting to learn a bit more about what the situation is like outside of the UK when it comes to this stuff. And what I want to talk about is the Humble Motor Club, which is kind of the entry point to grassroots motorsport. You know, the old advice has always been, if you want to get involved in motorsport, that you should seek out your local motor club and join and meet people and get involved that way. So I want to talk about that because I received an email today, as I record this on Wednesday. You'll be hopefully watching it when it comes out on Thursday. I received an email from my local club back in the UK, the Sporting Car Club of Norfolk, and it was sad. It was a sad email to read, or newsletter was sad to read. Firstly, because of the recent passing of the club's treasurer, David Leckie, who was a huge part of that club, had been for a very, very long time, did an awful lot for motorsport in the east of England, and will be very, very missed. He was very helpful to me in my time as a committee member in the club. So that was really sad. And people like David are unfortunately getting harder and harder to find, aren't they? You know, and I think it led me to this topic because on the second page of the newsletter, the club was putting out a call asking for people to join and to help them to find new committee members, because they've had a few people that have had to step down. Obviously, with losing David Leckie, they find themselves in a position where they're actually in danger of not being able to meet the minimum requirements for officials to be a Motorsport UK recognised club. And if they lose that status, they cannot hold Motorsport UK events. So they can't hold, let alone stage rallies, they couldn't hold trials and auto tests and auto solos and all those grassroots events that are so vital to the sport. And it got me thinking, you know, what do we do about this? How do we get people to join these clubs and to participate, and not just to join, but to be officials and on committees and treasurers and competition secretaries and all these mandatory roles? What do we do about that? And the answer is, it's not easy, is it? It's very difficult. I think, for me, I wrote something about this today, so that it's already on across my socials as an article, but I did want to keep talking about it because I think it's really important. I think a big thing for me is that I think, unfortunately, there needs to be some changes. That, in a way, is just clubs adapting. You know, I think the motor club model is a very old one. A lot of these clubs have their origins in the post-war years. The Sporting Car Club of Norfolk was established in 1951. So, on the one hand, it would be a disaster to lose a club like that, wouldn't it? Because it has so much history. And so many clubs have so much history. But at the same time, I think it also means that in some respects, and this is partly just down to the demographic of some of the people involved, that they don't necessarily keep up with the way that people communicate. You know, if you look at people in their late teens and in their early 20s, a lot of their time is spent communicating through social media, isn't it? TikTok and Snapchat and all these horrible apps. And a lot of people, if you're in your 50s or your 60s, the chances are you probably don't do that, do you? And I've been criticised before for attacking people and being ageist, and it's nothing to do with being ageist. It's just a harsh reality, isn't it? Different people of different generations communicate differently. You know, my parents don't text as much as I do. They don't WhatsApp as much. My parents are pretty good at WhatsApping, but you know what I mean? There's a just difference, isn't it? And technology has changed things so quickly, especially over the last 20 years or so, that we live in a different world. So while a lot of motor clubs, their primary means of communication is email or Facebook, for youngsters, they don't use those things. So I think, you know, and some clubs are doing a really good job. And in the time since I've been involved with that particular club, they have grown their social media presence a lot and have done lots and lots of good things. So there is lots to be proud of, and lots of clubs are doing good work, but there is always more to do. And I think that is something that clubs need to work on. It's something that Motorsport UK themselves need to work on in terms of helping clubs to do that stuff. But I think it also raises a wider point, and that's about the actual future of motor clubs. Because without them, motorsport does not happen. You know, behind every event is a motor club, whether it's circuit racing or a stage rally or an auto test, anything. They rely on clubs. And even something as a world championship, Rally GB, for example, you know, Ceredigion next year, which is ERC, those events rely on motor clubs. They are organised. You know, Ceredigion is organised by a motor club, and the marshals are motor club members. The officials are motor club members. Without those people, you have nothing. Without the committee members making all of that work, putting all of that together, you have no events. So this is a super important thing. But I think there is a big question about what the future looks like for motor clubs, and are we doing it right? Do we actually need to have a bit of a rethink about the whole structure? Is it time to make a more dramatic change? By that, I think the thing for me, let me start again slightly. The thing for me is that if you look at clubs in the East Anglian region alone, there are quite a few motor clubs. It's not, you know, it's not the biggest motorsport region in terms of rallying for sure, is it? But there are a few clubs in that region, and it just makes me think: is that the way to go now? If you look back to where these clubs originated, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, where they were in their kind of heyday, you could say, the world was a big place, wasn't it? You know, you didn't have as much digital communication, and the way to interact and to meet and to get into motorsport, you would go to the pub meetings every month, and you'd have the newsletter in the post and all of that stuff. And that worked great at that time, but now the world is much smaller, isn't it? And I think young people perhaps aren't as interested in going to the pub to meet people. They want the active social media side, and it's just different, isn't it? And I think for me, you know, I would question the benefits now of having. I think Motorsport UK say there's something like 300 clubs or something, and is that the way now? Is it better that we start to pool resources? Sticking to the East Anglia region, there is an organisation called Anglia Motorsport Club, and that is a coming together of all of the clubs in the region. So you've got the Sporting Car Club of Norfolk, you've got Chelmsford Motor Club, you've got West Suffolk Motorsport Club, you've got a regional kind of group of clubs that have come together, and they organise events together and communicate and share resources, and I think that is fantastic. And Motorsport UK have recognised what a great job they've done. And for me, that just makes me think, well, is that the model? So rather than having, you know, 4, 5, 6 clubs across 2 or 3 counties, should we not now just say, actually, there's going to be an East Anglia club, there's going to be a North West England club, there's going to be a South West England club, there's going to be a South Wales club, a North Wales club, an East Scotland club, you know, and effectively go from having hundreds of clubs to 20, maybe, you know. So you have a one club for each region, and all of those great people that you've got within the existing club system come together. So that would give you some advantages in terms of sharing resources. You'd share financial resources, which is really, really important, because these clubs are taking a lot of financial risk when they put on an event. So they would share that burden. They would share the work, you know, and I think it's really important to remember that all of these people are volunteers. They're giving up massive amounts of their time to organise events for free. So by sharing that load, I think you would help to make the clubs more efficient. You'd make them more financially stable potentially. And I think you'd have a much bigger pool of members because you'd have a regional membership. So it might actually be easier to do a lot of the things in terms of having meetings and bringing people together and finding new members and connecting with people, especially if you couple that with all of the social media stuff that I talked about earlier, of connecting online and using the newer platforms as well as the older ones. And I think just one example that I just want to touch on is websites. If you think about club websites as one example, the reason that most of those club websites exist is because the club happens to have someone who's a member who can build it for them. Because if that club doesn't have someone, where do they go? They can't afford to pay a web developing company thousands of pounds to build them a website. And I think that's one of the challenges with a lot of the administrative and digital stuff that clubs have to deal with. They can only do that stuff if they have members who happen to have the skill set. And that's very difficult, isn't it? Especially if your membership cohort is older, because you might not have that. And I think that is the advantage, isn't it, of pooling resources over a slightly bigger area. You don't have to have one club for the whole country, but you can have regional. So you might go from a club that's got 100 members to a club that's got 300 or 400 members. And those 300 or 400 people can bring their expertise, can't they? And that means that regional club's website will be much better. Their social media will be much better. They'll have lots more events to talk about, because it'll be covering an entire region rather than one county. So I think there's a lot to be said for it. I know, and I'm going to qualify this because I know that idea will upset some people. Lots of people are very attached to these clubs because those clubs have a lot of heritage, don't they? As I said, Sporting Car Club of Norfolk was established in 1951. It's got over 60 years of history. And I can understand why some people might be reluctant to see that. It's not going to disappear, is it? But it would change. So I can understand why it would be a big shift for people. But for me, I think we have to think about taking those kinds of actions. If you look at Anglia Motorsport Club, and I do urge you to seek it out, look at what they're doing. And even if the individual clubs remained, but much of the work was done under that regional kind of banner, it could start to help the situation. I want to finish by saying just one thing. As I said in the article that I put out, it doesn't matter what I think about the structure. It doesn't matter what I think about how clubs should be organised, how Motorsport UK should handle finding members, how clubs should handle finding members. I think whether we have the number of clubs that we have now, or whether we go to a system where we have 20 clubs, the fact remains that without them, whatever they look like, however many members they have, however many clubs there are, without them, motorsport doesn't happen. So I would urge all of you, if you're watching this, if you're in the UK, or even if you're not in the UK, whatever system your country uses, to seek out your local club and find a way that you can help them. That might be marshalling once a year. I would advocate, and this will definitely piss some people off, if you hold a competition licence, and I know John Cleland has said similar, if you hold a competition licence, you should marshal once every year at least. And I think that should be mandatory, because as I keep saying, the volunteers, the guys in orange, they make this stuff happen, and I think it's very important that all of us get involved. So please, if you're in Norfolk especially, seek out Sporting Car Club of Norfolk and volunteer, but just generally, wherever you live, whatever your involvement in the sport, please have a look, find your local club. They'll be on Facebook, they'll have a website. Find them and just think, what can I do? You could be a marshal, you could help them with their website, you could help them to do social media posts, you could do some stuff for their newsletter, even if it's just sending articles for when they do a newsletter. As someone who used to edit a club newsletter, that makes all the difference, because again, it just helps you to communicate and create a community. So I'm going to end there. That was a little bit longer than I thought. Again, I'm sorry if it was a UK centric thing, but please, if you're not in the UK, do comment. I'd like to hear what the situation is like wherever you do live. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the video. And I will catch you again in the next episode.